Well, good evening. Looks like I'm cutting my head off here, but hold on a second. Good evening, everybody. It looks like we've got 26 individuals who have attended so far. That's a really good number. Thank you for devoting some of your evening to this webinar. I hope it'll be informational, and I hope it'll be useful to you. Got a little bit of a throat issue, so I've got my mug of water here. Hold on. So I'm going to jump right into the PowerPoint presentation and give you a little context, a little bit of a high-level view of what we want to cover during this webinar, and then there'll be two sets of question and answer periods. The last time we did this, it was a different slide deck. We ran about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and I imagine it must have been fairly fatiguing for the people listening. So I've tightened it up. We've removed a number of slides. We've removed a number of words from the screen, so it's not as busy as it was. And I hope, given the fact that we'll do a question and answer period after about 15 or 20 minutes, and then another one at the end, that we'll be able to get most, if not all, of your questions answered. Sometimes a question may be very specific to your situation, and if we've already covered it, or if it seems like it's going to be a little too complex for everybody's well-being, we'll probably try to address that offline, one-on-one with you. So apologize if we don't get to all of your questions, but I'm going to minimize this control window. It looks like 27 attendees, so I'm going to move right into this seminar. I can move I've only worked with GoToMeeting for about 15 years, so I have no excuse for not being able to move my window out of the way. Oh, there we go. Just click off of it. There we go. So with the group buy, what we're hoping to do with the Western Dane County Solar Group Buy is we're hoping to get 100 projects contracted and built this year. So a little over a half of a megawatt probably. That's our goal. And just to set the stage for this evening, I'm going to talk about the who, what, when, why, how. We're going to have a question and answer period. And then for the second half this evening, we're going to go over an example of net metering, which is an important concept for solar. We're going to go over an example of a residential solar cost benefit, as well as a commercial solar cost benefit. We're going to have David Plume from Eagle Point Solar talk a little bit about the group buy solar equipment and options. And then we're going to have more question and answer period. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the next one, which is really simply an acknowledgement page. I want to thank very much. I want to thank the individuals listed here and others who helped bring this group buy to a reality. Barbara Borns, Warren Gaskell, David Stanfield, Peter Anthony. And I know I don't have the committee correctly named here, but I do know that there was the title Climate Action Workshop. We were the third of three. And so I thank those guys for inviting us to help your communities in Western Dane County, of which I used to be a member. I used to live right near Tyrrell Basin in Vermont Township. Went to Mount Horeb High School, class of '85, so I've just dated myself. Well, you can tell here what's going on with that. All right, so who are the who? So part of the who is Legacy Solar Co-op. Legacy Solar Co-op is a member-owned cooperative. We started in 2014. We've grown to over 185 members. Mostly the members are individuals, but we also have members who are installers of solar, and also members who are vendors who help with energy efficiency and other kind of energy related services and products. So Legacy Solar Co-op is really, it's kind of a buyer's co-op. So it's really natural that we would, get into the group buy field. But most of our work up until now has been with not-for-profit community institutions. We've helped put solar on a lot of municipal buildings, a lot of libraries, a lot of schools, churches, and other nonprofits. For instance, a couple of humane societies, low-income housing tax credit related facilities, and whatnot. So we've leveraged over $1 million of co-op member bond investments to improve solar in Wisconsin, and we've helped generate over 3 megawatts of solar projects. So enough tooting my own horn. If you do become a member, if you're not already a member of the co-op, it's only $100 for individuals to be a lifetime member. If you join and you participate in this group buy this summer, we will qualify you for a $100 incentive that will be prepaid before your solar project gets built. So that'll help defray a little bit of the costs. If you're interested more in learning about the co-op, there's our website. I did want to now introduce the other who from this group buy. The other who would be the solar contractors. So if you're not familiar with how a group buy works, what we do is we put out an RFP. That's a request for proposal, and we asked for vendors to propose the best equipment and the best pricing they could offer if we were able to market and find 50 or 100 or more projects that they could build. So out of that RFP, there were 4 respondents, and 2 of the firms have worked together to create a pricing matrix, and are very, very well experienced firms. The first that I'll list here is Eagle Point Solar out of Dubuque. They've got offices all over Wisconsin. They've done a lot of solar in the Midwest. They've done some amazing solar and projects and policy advocacy in Iowa. And All Sky Energy is out of Baraboo, so just in our backyard. And so All Sky Energy and Eagle Point will work together and help your home or business add solar to your facilities. So here's a picture of a home in our neighborhood here in Madison. One of our members, Nick Hine, volunteered that picture. Here's a business. This is Willie Street Co-op on the west side of Madison. So you can see there's different kinds of roof mounts, whether it's pitched or whether it's flat. And the target market for this group buy will be in western Dane County. So that includes along Highway 14, Middleton, Cross Plains, Vermont Township, out to Black Earth, Mazamanie. Along 18 and 151, it includes Verona, Mount Horeb, Blue Mounds, and then any of the townships that are touching those areas, as well as certain parts of Middleton, certain parts of other areas in Dane County, and just over the border. You may still, even if you're not in the area proper that is inscribed here, you may still qualify for the group buy pricing matrix. So I did want to mention surrounding areas may also apply. Okay, so now the what. What is a solar group buy? Well, you've probably already figured it out. What we have with a solar group buy is we have economies of scale. We're organizing as many solar projects as we can in a fairly limited, somewhat limited geographical area so that we can get high concentration of efficiency. We are also dealing in the rural southwestern Wisconsin, south central Wisconsin. So In the rural area, it's not just homes, but also farms and small businesses that can participate in this. The solar group buy will help streamline education. This is part of the education right now, is just teaching you about solar, teaching you about the technology, teaching you about the economics of solar and how it can work, and how the incentives can help you acquire solar more easily. Also, we'll streamline scheduling. There may be periods of time where you feel like you're having to wait several days or maybe a week or more, but that's because we've got a lot of projects that we're wanting to coordinate. And the better we're able to coordinate them, the more efficiently will be when we schedule and do the installations. So hang in there. If you've already contacted us, but you're waiting for us to get back to you, we're trying our best to ask for the information that we need from you, but also to move you on to the next step between one of the two solar contractors that we're working with. And so the other thing about a group buy is you get the best pricing possible. I've been in this market, in this field. My wife and I put solar on our house back in 2006. I have not seen prices like this. This is an amazing opportunity to get in while the pricing is low and you still get the highest quality equipment. And so the other thing about a group buy is it's not just solar contractors out there working for themselves. The co-op will provide some oversight, answer additional questions, help put the value proposition into perspective for your particular needs, but also act as a liaison between you and the solar contractors, because we speak their language. So it's really a collaboration of experts and organizations that come together with this group buy. Now, why now? Well, you get the group buy discount, so that's one reason. There's a focus on energy incentive, but the thing is, with focus on energy, it's really first come, first served. So it's not a bottomless budget or bottomless well of funds available. There's a tax credit, but the thing with the tax credit is it is also time bound. Right now, you can get a 26% investment tax credit, which is a reduction in your taxes that you use by 26%, not a deduction. So it's an important difference. A tax credit is better than a deduction, but that 26% tax credit is only good through the end of this year, and you have to have the project built and installed and inspected before the end of the year. So that's another reason why now. Next year, the tax credit goes down to 22%. And for an average sized residential array, that's about a $600 less credit for next year than for this year. So that's another reason not to wait. After that, after 2021, residential tax credit goes down to 0. Commercial tax credit still remains at 10%. So that's what we have right now. Hopefully there will be legislation that will extend those tax credits, especially since the COVID pandemic, because of the economic stimulus that comes with solar and the jobs that are created from investments in solar. But for right now, that's the time lock that we have for the tax credit. The last thing is probably one of the most important reasons why you'd want to consider doing solar now. You can lock in the best net metering terms with your utility. What does that mean? We'll talk about net metering later, but basically when you generate electricity parallel to the electricity that's coming in from your grid supplier, your utility, anytime you exceed the amount of electricity that you need in that moment, you are exporting your power to the utility. And what happens is your meter turns backwards. Not literally, because now it's digital meter, but your meter keeps track of the comings and the goings of electrons. And currently, you probably have the best net metering terms with your utility possible. In a year or 2 or 3 years, utilities, as they start to feel the crunch, they're going to probably try to restrict and make less favorable these net metering terms. So rather than getting a retail credit, a one-to-one credit, there may be other limitations and constraints put on that. But if you get in now, history has shown that MG&E, Alliant, and other utilities have actually grandfathered solar customers when they change terms. So that's another reason to get in now before net metering policies change. Now, why choose PV? PV stands for photovoltaics. Why choose solar electric? There are lots of reasons. I'll just pause for a second. You can see lots of different rationale for wanting to go solar. But whatever the reason is, we can all agree that if you can get clean electricity that basically pays for itself in a short amount of time, it's kind of a no-brainer. So now we get to the how. So how can you participate in this solar group buy? The best way is to email Legacy Solar Co-op through info@legacysolarcoop.org. Our phone number is there on the screen. The phone number goes to, if it's not answered right away, it's forwarded to our team, and then we will answer questions. We will ask you for information about your utility bills. So the necessary information that you see there, what we'll ask for is at least 12 months of electric use data. 24 months is better. So 2 years is better than 1, but if you only have access to 1 year worth of electric bills, pass those along to us. We also want a copy of at least 1 actual electric bill. So it's not just the numbers of how many kilowatt hours that you're using, but if you have 1 copy of an electric bill, that'll allow us to see the account number, the meter plan that you're currently on, as well as your consumption. And then photos of your property. And we'll need those photos because now during the COVID crisis, I mean, we have apparently businesses will be opening up again, but still we want to respect the social distancing just for common sense. We realize the pandemic is still a threat. So if you're able to provide us photos of your property, these are some of the photos that we will be asking for. So again, this is part of the how to participate in the solar group buy. What we're going to be looking for are electrical panel photos. We want a close-up of your service. Basically, here's an example. It'll probably either say 100 amps or 200 amps on the top switch. We'll also like a medium shot of an open service panel. That'll allow us to look down near the bottom and see how many open slots you have to backfeed breakers for your solar power. We're also going to be asking for a wide shot of the room from across the room, showing it's kind of camouflage here, but showing some space to the left and to the right, above and below a little bit, and also so that we can visualize what kind of electrical chase we might have, especially if it's on an interior wall. This one you can see is this electrical panel is on an exterior wall because you can see the window right there. You can see outside. But another photo that we're going to be looking for will be relating to your electrical meters. So a close-up of your electrical meter. Put your ID will be on there, so we'll be able to compare that with your bills and make sure that that they're charging you appropriately, that you've got the right meter. We also would like a wide shot. Now, I know I'm going over lots and lots of details here, but don't worry, we're going to send you all of this information, and you'll have a list of these kind of photos that you can provide. I'm just giving you examples right now. So here's a wide shot of the meter. It ends up being under here, and we want to be able to visualize where that service is coming into your house so that we can connect the solar panels to what you've got inside of your home. Now, if you're going to be putting solar on a roof, what we'll want to see is the underside of your roof. So from the attic, if you're able to take a photo showing rafters or trusses, and if you're intrepid enough to get up and actually measure the distance between these, usually it'll be 16 inches on center or 20 inches on center or 24 inches on center. And then these look like they're 2x6s. So we'll need that just so that we can verify that the engineering of your roof can handle the extra weights of the solar panel. And then lastly, or almost lastly, a picture that gives us some indication as to the condition of your roof, or if you can just tell us whether the roof is 2 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old. You know, those things may make a difference when you're making a decision whether you want to do a roof mount or a ground mount. So information, this is the last couple of, I know I'm just talking on and on, but these are the last couple of photos for ground mount. So the first is, if you have enough space in your yard where you can actually mount solar outside at ground level, it'll actually be about 3 feet up above ground level, but we want to see a picture of your ideal spot in your yard. And if you're able to put a little X on it, great. Otherwise, we'll also want to have a picture from the, so this is from the house looking out at the backyard. But we'll also want a picture from the ideal spot looking back at the house so that we can kind of get a sense for what the ground looks like, you know, whether it's going to be more rocky, if it's going to be softer soil, or whether it's going to be hard soil, because we'll want to trench through there. And if you remember earlier, the meter is just around the corner underneath the porch. So, you know, we'll have to go up this way or go up that way. But we'll discuss that with you in person before anybody signs contracts. But we'll want this information now so that we can provide you with an actionable proposal, one that you can say, hey, yes, I'm ready, let's go forward. And then once you sign a contract, put down a small deposit, then the solar installer will come out to verify, if they haven't already, whatever information they need to get the job done. So I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to see whether Jackie, who is on with us, if she's been monitoring the chat room, see if there are any questions that we can help cover.
Yep, we've got
just so you know, in the second half, we are going to be covering costs and benefits. We will be covering the group buy equipment and options. That'll be David Bloom. And then we will cover financing options. Actually, we'll refer to financing options, but mostly the financing options are personalized and depending on what your needs are. So you can ask us, or you can ask the installer anything you want about financing if you're thinking of financing your solar project. Okay, I'll shut up now. Q&A time. So
okay.
What do we have? Who do we have? Do you have some questions for me?
I do.
Okay.
This is a question from, I believe it's Michael Alexander. We're looking into having a new covered patio space and are considering solar as the roofing for it. Is that a good option?
That is a great option. Now, the caveat with that is if your patio space has a lot of shading or is facing north rather than east, west, or south, facing north is going to be not ideal at all. But if it's facing west without any shade, if it's facing south without any shade, if it's facing east without any shade, that's probably a good idea. And so, you know, if you're able to provide us a facsimile or a mock-up of what that's going to look like and provide that to us, then we can get a better idea of how, what kind of structural racking might be ideal for that surface. Good question.
Okay. Kurt, so here's another one. I live in a condominium complex, and this is from Gregory Sheehy. I live in a condominium complex. Is there such a thing as an association buy-in?
Absolutely. We can work with associations. We can work with condominiums. It ends up being a little trickier, however, and usually the best way to do that is to combine forces. If the association is going to buy into a solar project, the easiest way to structure it financially is to have that solar hooked up to the common meter and offset the common loads, whether it's lights or heat or whatever. But if individual condominium association members have a roof and a separate meter that is close to their unit, there's also the possibility that those kind of infrastructure changes on that individual roof can be tied into an individual meter, and then that would be offsetting just that one individual unit's electrical consumption. But it's really something that we'll need to talk about individually. And if we can get 3 or 4 or 5 people from your condo to opt for that, then the economies would work out better. That's
Okay.
just my perspective. I'll see if Dave, I don't know if Dave, if you have any opinion on that with regard to the group buy, if that's too complex, but those are the kind of complexities that I deal with, and maybe we can work together on it.
Okay, Kurt, 2 more.
Hold on. I was asking Dave if he could answer that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I didn't know. Am I on volume?
Yeah, I can hear you,
Okay.
Dave.
Yeah, we've done commons already, like just down in Monroe, we just did one here. When you get into the individual apartments and stuff like that, you're not the property owner, so you really don't have the rights to do that is the problem. So it's usually just the property owner, and then he can do the commons that we've run into, that I've run into anyhow, so.
Yeah, so if it's an apartment, I think that's a much different situation. But yes, with an association, you're a part owner, but the association is the legal owner. So there may have to be some sort of roof lease arrangement with the individual condo owner, unless the association all agree that they're going to benefit from this, because it may improve the value of your property if you have this technology on the roof that's going to reduce your operating expenses. So next question.
So this is from Deb Weitzel. I own a timber frame with SIPs for the roof. Solar panels be used here?
Can you repeat? I'm not sure. What's what?
I'm not sure what a SIP is. She typed, I own a timber frame with SIPs for the roof.
And tell me who it is, and I'll unmute them. Did you say Deb?
Deb?
It's structural insulated, Kurt, structural insulated panels.
Okay, hi Deb. So now I understand that it's a structural integrated panel. I put SPI in my notes, that's why I got confused, but SIP, okay. I'm gonna pass that one on to Dave. How about that for responsibility? Dave, do you have anything that you can say about structural insulated panels and whether that is a substrate that solar can be added to?
Yes, they can. We actually did one at the Friends of Blue Mountains building, and we're doing another one there. So a bit what we need is the manufacturer of the SIP building who put it up is what we need. So
okay,
because we have to get the plans from them to see where the rafters and everything are.
Sounds good. Does that answer your question, Deb?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Sorry, didn't mean to call you out individually. I just thought I'd see if that was good. But we'll we'll make sure you mention that when you talk with us next, and we'll make sure Dave, can answer that. But really, but you need to get the manufacturer information so they can look at the specifications for that material, how it was built.
We have just one more question on here. If you're
Okay.
ready for the next one. This is from Matt Link. When should a typical residential project be started to meet the December 31st deadline?
Well, at least December 29th. Just kidding. Dave, as we get closer to Christmas, I know solar installers get more and more nervous because it's really dependent on the weather. You can't be up there when it's negative degrees and ice and all of that. So you probably try to wrap everything up in early December if you're able to, right?
Yeah, we've done them all the way up to December 31st. The thing is to be able to get it turned on by the end of the year. Keep in mind, most utilities have 21 business days to respond to the final turn on. So
That's a
keep that
really
in mind
good
if you're
point.
looking for taxes.
Yeah, the bottleneck in this situation, we could have solar on your house tomorrow, but it may be a couple of weeks. It might be a month even for both the local inspection to take place. But usually the last thing that happens is the utility needs to commission it. They come out, they shut it off, they turn it back on, they make sure the anti-islanding is working and all of that. So scheduling those things for the end of December is really hard because usually people want to go on vacation, and so you maybe don't have as many inspectors, maybe you don't have as many utility personnel available to make those appointments. So what Dave said is, they have 21 days legally to get it wrapped up, so you really want to, start early. But sometimes maybe you've got things like you've got a roof that you're going to have replaced in the fall, and so you can't get started until later in the fall. We understand that. We'll try to work with you and coordinate with your roofer to make sure that we can get going in a timely manner. Okay, any other questions right now? I'll move on to the next slide. And
No, not right now.
okay, well, thanks everybody. Those are really good questions. Dave, we'll be back with you in just a few minutes, and I'll keep going. All right. So it's not really second 30 minutes because I don't know if what time is it? It is second 30 minutes because we've taken up 30 minutes so far. Well, thanks for your patience. What we're going to cover next is an example of net metering. I discussed it earlier as an important concept. We're going to try to flesh that out a little bit. We're also going to give you an example of a residential solar project to kind of the cost benefit analysis, as well as a commercial solar cost benefit analysis. And then after those two slides, I'm going to turn it over to our resident expert, business development guru, Tony Hartman will give us some examples of those. I don't know if the financing slides survived the culling from last time, but Dave, if you wanted to say something about financing, that's great. But we're also going to have Dave talk about group buy solar equipment. Basically, he's going to go over the different components that are included in a solar array, and how we put that together to work safely and effectively for your house. And then we'll have another Q&A. So here we go. All right, net metering. Basically, with net metering, you start with no solar, right? And then we call this a retrofit. So if you have an existing home, we're going to retrofit this with solar. Before you put the solar on, perhaps you are one of the millions of Americans who are in that average electricity use per year with about 10,000 kilowatt hours. So 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity translates to about 12,000 pounds of coal in Wisconsin, because we are fairly heavy with coal in the generation mix, and at least for base load in Wisconsin. So beforehand, you're procuring your electricity from the grid. This is symbolizing your meter here. And then when you add solar, don't you like my beautiful solar array that I drew on there? When you add solar, what happens is that first of all, you're going to use the electricity on site, right? So it's going to come from the roof. You're going to be, using it on site, and whatever you don't use that comes from the roof or from your solar array, if it's ground mount, whatever you don't use is going to be exported out through the meter and back to the grid. It'll probably go to your neighbor's meter, and then they'll be able to use clean electricity. So if you add 4 kilowatts, that's 4,000 watts of solar. That will generate in a year in Wisconsin, without a lot of shading, that'll generate roughly 5,000 kilowatt hours a year. And from that, basically you're talking about cutting your consumption from 10,000 a year to 5,000 a year. So that would be about a 50% solar mix. And if you're doing that now, of course, your reliance on coal and the 1.39 pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour of electricity, you're down to 6,000 pounds of coal that you're depending on. So you can augment and make this even better through energy efficiency. But this is just one way we talk about netting. Is that you're not going to be off the grid. You're still going to be using electricity from the utility, but you're just going to reduce your reliance on it, and the pluses and minuses through the meter are going to average out. On the bottom, it says that only MG&E has annual netting. So the Mount Horeb utility, the Black Earth utility, as well as Alliant, all have month-to-month net metering, but it's actually, they call it net billing in Alliant territory. And it's kind of complex, but we'll run through it with you with the proposal. There'll be a spreadsheet that will show you what you're paying now and what you would be paying after putting in your solar project. So that's net metering. All right, so payback for a typical residential solar array. If you spend $10,000 on a solar array, you get a lot more for your money through the group buy, but what that will total will be a $2,600 tax credit because it's 26%. So you'll get that back when you file your taxes. If you've had withholdings over the year for 2020 and the spring of 2021, when you get your tax bill or when you get your tax refund, it'll be in your favor by $2,600. You'll be able, if you're in time to reserve it, you'll be able to get up to a $1,000 focus on energy rebate. It's not $1,000 per se, but it depends on how many kilowatts you arrive. But the ceiling is $1,000, and again, that's rapidly being used up. So in the first month or two, you'll be more likely to be able to get a focus on energy rebate. If you wait until the fall to reserve your award or your rebate, it's less likely that money will still be there. Now, so your net out of pocket from a $10,000 retail solar array, if you're not taking out a loan, the net out of pocket would be about $6,400. If the solar array generates 5,000 kilowatt hours, like that example we just gave, and depending on your utility, it could be 11 cents per kilowatt hour or 12 cents per kilowatt hour. When you add in some of the avoided distribution costs, it might actually be 13 or 14 cents per kilowatt hour, but somewhere in that 11 to 13 cent range. So somewhere between $550 and $600 of savings, you're going to save right away in year one. But utility rates will go up. I can't say when. Usually, since the recession, there hasn't been as many rate increases that have been above 1 or 2%. In fact, some of the utilities brag a little bit about not having raised their rates, but rest assured, rates will go up. The investor-owned utilities do rely on at least a 10 or 15% rate of return for their stockholders. So that's per year. But yes, utility rates probably go up. between 1 and 3% on average over a decade or so. So you can look at maybe an 8 or 9 year payback for your solar array. But if you have an electric vehicle, now you're offsetting a different form of energy. You're offsetting gasoline. Now, if you're offsetting gasoline this month, it's not that great, but when gasoline gets back up above $2, which it probably will eventually, now your payback on your solar array is probably going to be about a 6-year payback. Meanwhile, your solar array will keep producing power for 25 to 40 years. That's why we call it a legacy. Legacy solar is about doing what you can to get your clean energy today, and this will last for over a generation. On the commercial side, if you have a business or a farm even, you can look at not only a 26% tax credit, but you can also get 100% bonus depreciation in that first year. If you don't have a lot of taxable income in the first year to offset from your business for that depreciation, you can spread it out over 6 years. It has a similar payback profile, but because of the accelerated depreciation, that helps bring the payback down, sometimes under 5 years, but really 5 to 6 years is probably average. Whoops, okay, yeah, so that's the big game changer with commercial. Now, nonprofits or farms or co-ops, you can reach out to the Legacy Solar Co-op, because what we've done is helped tax finance over 24 community institutions since 2014. And so we can bring the overall cost to a community institution down, especially upfront costs down, but in year 6, after the 5-year tax credit recapture period has elapsed from the IRS, you can look at saving perhaps 40 or 50% for your library, your church, your school, your other nonprofit. Now, we're going to ask for Tony Hartman to unmute his microphone and will take us on a brief tour of 2 example solar projects. You there, Tony?
I am, Kurt. Thanks for bringing us this far. This is awesome. And I want to make sure you just have water in that mug of yours. You say that, but
it's water, and it's liquid water and it's solid water. I've got some ice cubes in there.
Okay, very good. So we're going to talk a little bit about what a typical house looks like. I live in the rural part of Fitchburg, and this is my house. So several years ago, I thought, geez, I really want to get some solar too. I want to get to be part of this. And so I had to get into the business actually to get the rate that's now being offered by Eagle Point and Allsky. So you folks are lucky, and I think we do have a darn good price. But before we go any further, let me just tell you how it's worked for me so far. I have an old Rambler. It's built in the 60s. It's 3,000 feet on one floor and then another 1,000 and some basement down below. But I'm down to about $100 a month in electricity costs. I was higher. Since I got the panels, I also have gotten an electric car, so I charge that up. It's a Volt, so it'll take from an empty charge between 15 and 18 kilowatt hours overnight. And I pay, it's actually a little more than 12.6 cents. I think it's up to 12.7 in variable rates, but I am in MG&E territory, so I can overproduce in the summer months as long as the exporting during the year is less than the importing. So for me, I figured the payback was going to be in that 8 to 10 year range. I was able to get Focus on Energy incentive at the time of $1,140. And as you heard Kurt mention, that pot of money is a little different every year. Right now, for the moment, it's about $1,000, and then there's a rural kicker for some places. But you can count on $1,000, but that would only be for the next few months. That pot is shrinking fast. There have been a lot of residential projects this year, so we're really encouraging people to jump on this if they want to get that. The other thing, the biggie, is the investment tax credit, and through the end of last year, it was 30%. It's now 26%, so slight decrease. But you know, for me, the only other cost was some bracing up in my rafters, and Kurt showed you the picture there. I actually helped the carpenter up there, so it was only $900, but we put in some cross braces just to beef that up. wasn't, the installer said it wouldn't hurt to do that because my house was stick built. So that's what I did. Finally, at the bottom there, you see it says Critter Guard. And I think, well, then there's the size of my array too. These days, panels tend to be over 300 watts. I'm sure Dave will speak to that typically. They are. So I have 20 of the slightly smaller 285 watt panels. So just over 3 panels per kilowatt, which gives me a total of 5.7. Now the Critter Guard, I would recommend, Kurt will tell you too, that it's worth having because both of us had those little rascal squirrels chew through our wires. And I have too many trees around my house. It's too easy for them to jump up there on the house. But anyway, so that's my place, and you get a pretty good look at it there, even with a little snow just rolling off of it. So the one fun thing about this, and I always tell people, you get a little hooked on this pretty easily because you can look at an app on your phone at any time. I don't know how much that's reflecting for everybody at home, but you can see how much you're producing. This was a very sunny day, roughly a month ago, and you can see a typical bell-shaped curve on an average day. So at the peak, I was making right around 5 kilowatts, hence the 5.7 kilowatt array, which has some losses in the conversion from DC to AC electric, which is what your house uses. But you can see that the power starts producing around 7:30 in the morning, and last month anyway, knocks off about 5:30. Especially for me, you see some little funny humps there because I do have trees to the east and the west in my house. So fun to do, not necessary, but you can get right down to the panel level and you can see when there's a panel that's underproducing. Could be because there was some snow on it or dirt or any other possibility, but it's nice to be able to take a look at it yourself and alert your installer if you think there's an issue. This shows you year over year. I think this was about the 3rd week in April. You see the green bars are this year's bars, red, the first year I had up, I think, and the first full year. And March actually was less this year than 2 years ago, but better than last year. April actually ended up being better this year. It went almost to 700 kilowatt hours by the end of the month. So this is not current, but it was as of about 3-4 weeks ago. Anyway, that's production. Here's a picture that is the actual array on my roof, the 20 panels and how they're laid out. And you can look at them at any given time and see what any of the individual panels are producing with this solar edge technology. The little green television looking thing in the top center is the inverter itself. And it shows what the production level is there. So again, the panels on the roof are producing direct current, gets fed into the inverter, switches it to AC, and that goes into your box and gets fed out, exported to the utility during the day. I looked at my March production. It was the last one that MG&E had online for me. It said that I exported 223 kilowatt hours in March. I produced a little over 550 in the stretch. It was a 33-day stretch. So I ended up purchasing right about 1,000 kilowatt hours. So, and for those of you with electric cars, you'll know that the mileage goes down in the winter months. So anyway, there's my house again. Okay, jumping to the small commercial. One of the neat community institutions near everybody in Western Dane County is the Ice Age Trail Alliance. We've taken a look at it, just started to size it up. Their consumption annually is 18,000 kilowatt hours, so about 1,500 per month. That was as of last year. They're in MG&E territory, so they get the entire year to true up. And from the roof, you can see that if we put on not even a complete array, but if we filled up 2/3, 3/4 of the roof, we could produce about 78% of what they consume in a year. So that would be a 12 to 14 kilowatt array, 30 to 40 panels, a little over twice the size of the one I have on my house. This is a flat roof, so ballast mounted just simply means that there's a rack underneath it with a piece of cinder block usually holding it down. Anyway, the quote for this, came in for 32 panels at $26,000, just over. And Kurt mentioned how we do tax equity financing, but the annual savings, about $100 a month. So not bad, a little bit more. I'm sorry, that's $150 a month. And so the payback for this commercial system was about 9 to 10 years after incentives. we hope to help them execute on that. A lifetime savings, though, and Kurt mentioned 25 is a warranty period, but panels 30 and 40 years old still producing power out in space. So they're looking at a $500 or $50,000 or more savings over the life of these panels. CO2 savings, of course, really huge. I know a lot of you are interested in this. That would be over 300 tons, so 300 times 2,000 pounds of CO2. And if you're using the tax financing with the co-op or your businesses or your church, we do a lot of nonprofits, VFWs, we've mentioned a few of them. Very little money up front, and the buyout is about half the cost when they buy out a used system in the 6th year. I think that's about all I've got. So I guess Dave Plume is up next. Dave, are you out there?
I am out here, yes.
Great.
So
He's going to tell you how solar works.
thank you for joining us. Basically, the way the solar works is the photons from the sun hit the panels. It creates a DC current. The panels, the film itself is made of silicon, phosphorus, which is the negative, boron is the positive, makes it spin in the circular motion that comes out of the panel in a DC form, goes into the inverter, gets converted from DC to AC. From there, it goes into the load side of the meter. Any power that you're using on a nice sunny day, you're going to use that power from the solar first. The extra will go back into the grid, and then again, based on your utility, of how they credit your account, whether it's net metering or net billing. Okay, so pricing for this program here, we're looking at the matrix that we put together here with All Sky, and it's a tiered system. So the more people that get into the program, the better pricing you get in a tiered manner. Everything option-wise, there's going to be a tier 1 panel, okay, which means at the top of the line, we don't deal with tier 2 or tier 3. They have a 25-year warranty to produce 80% of what they're designed to do minimum. We have options for US-made panels also. We also have options for German-made if you like. These are the brands that we're looking at here is VSUN, Axatech, Philadelphia, which is also a bifacial. Bifacial is more used for like on white roofs, things like that. So inverter wise, the brands we use are Solar Edge, Sunny Boy, and AP Systems, which is a microinverter. And as we come out, we see which is best for you, whether a microinverter or the string inverter with the optimizers would make the best sense for you. We do offer battery systems also, which is LG Chem, Fortress Power, and then there's also the Tesla Powerwall also. This is kind of an example of the tiered system based on different sizes. There's going to be different requirements here as far as, is there going to be any difference in the length of the trench versus the the roof pitch, things like that. Do we need a lift to be able to put this thing up on the roof? All these things come into play. Are we going to need concrete footers for your the pillars that we put in, or can we just pound them in? That's going to be based on your ground. Are we going to hit a lot of hard stone? If we get up around Baraboo, obviously we get into the courts. So up there it's pretty much concrete generally. Now it comes down to the things of the utility has to come out. We'll have these things on an average solar array. We could build these things in probably 1 or 2 days. So from there, it's just a matter of, again, the utility getting them 21 business days to get out there to make a different, to make their next move for as far as whether it's the inspection or of giving us PTO. Everything here is in the group buy. Everything's based on a watt percentage. So this is an example of what the pricing would be here. There's roof versus ground. There is differences also on the prices of those. So example here is again of a roof array here. To give you an idea, there's different, people always ask, is there different types? And so we use the Iron Ridge model for the brackets. When we get into the shingle roof, then there's also, if you have a standing seam, you use an S5 clamp. If you have the lapse tin, then it's a different, like a double L shaped bracket that we use. So there's always brackets that are factory made for these applications. Okay. When you get into the again, same, get into the agricultural area here, and I have to reiterate what Kurt said. Critter guard, definitely if you have a lot of animals around there, whether it be squirrels, coons. We've had one couple who was in one of our former group buys, had a baby coon get up underneath the solar array and rip the shingles off from underneath it. So if you're in a heavily wooded area, definitely recommend it. Okay. This is, and then we also get into the pricing for commercial flat roofs. They're a ballasted system, and then we get into other pricing for the ground arrays. But the flat roof pitching here is again ballasted, so it's like a cradle that holds the blocks in place, and then these things are all bolted together. We've got pictures of these here, and if you want to actually see one, we can take you to one too. So.
Well, thank you, Dave. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? Because I know I kind of drew up a few slides on your behalf. Do you have anything else you want to mention that wasn't shown on those slides at all right now for our audience?
Well, some things people ask is how heavy do these things hold up for hail? These things are tested with a 1-inch ball of ice at 262 miles an hour, which is an F5. They're very durable.
Okay, that's a really good point. So that kind of leads me to questions. I'm going to advance the slide during the Q&A. Oh, I shouldn't have said that out loud.
Okay.
Oh,
So
all right.
Kurt, then a couple of questions are dealing with kind of both ends of the spectrum. Matt Link asked, he said that his electric bill ranges from $50 to $70 per month, and does solar make sense for him, assuming that there are favorable conditions? And then Nancy Bruins said that they use between 5K and 6K a year, or 5,000 to 6,000 kilowatt hours per year, and was wondering if that would take longer for them to see a return on their investment.
No, actually not. I mean, it's all relative. If you have if you use a little power or a lot of power, you're going to get the same value per kilowatt hour for the solar that you generate. So, if you have one solar panel, nobody's ever going to hook up just one solar panel. I think the minimum is, going to be closer to 2 or 3 kilowatts. But if you have a 2 or 3 kilowatt array, you're gonna basically earn 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour that you generate, whether it's a small array or a large array. So it's scalable that way. When you do get to the larger arrays, as you saw from the pricing matrix that Dave was talking about, the larger arrays are going to cost a little less per unit solar panel, and so yeah, you'll see a little bit of an economy of scale the larger you get. But this group buy, the base bid is super low, so you could have 3, 4, 5 kilowatt arrays that are very cost effective. Am I right, Dave?
Just a quick follow-up with
Right.
Nancy and Matt. I would say, Nancy, it sounds like you're just about half of what I consume, so your bill's about half. I would guess that you could easily still benefit from, for 3 kilowatts, which would be, roughly 10 panels, maybe a little bit less. And that's about the threshold, as Kurt said. When you get below that, you still have to have an inverter. There are some fixed costs in every quote. Dave can speak to that, but I think down to that size, you're going to be just fine. And I think, Matt, you mentioned $50 to $70 a month, probably the same thing for you. You might even be able to go a little higher. It just depends which utility you're in and what you pay per kilowatt hour.
Okay. Arthur Waldman was inquiring about the hail damage, but also wanted to know, which I think, Dave, you probably answered, but he also wants to know, if a roof lasts 20 years and the solar units last 40, how do you deal with that?
We would inspect the roof to see what the shape of those in. We would probably recommend to have the roof replaced if it's 20 years old. If it's 10, probably not. You can hire us to come out and take the old array off and then put it back on and rehook it up when that time comes. We've done that already. You're running about $75 an hour. You're probably talking 6 to 7 hours to do it. So you're right around probably $600-700 to do it
And
on an
there's
average
also,
size array.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys, and I think All Sky Energy as well, they have a local roofing company that they do work with, so they can coordinate some of that. And sometimes when you're putting some of the solar project into a refi or a what am I trying to say, a home equity loan or something like that. You can, two birds with one stone. You can sometimes, improve the quality of your roof, and then get that solar in place. But yeah, if it's under 10 years old and in good condition, it's cost effective to go ahead and put the solar on now.
Okay.
And in general, the panels do offer some protection to the shingles underneath. I don't want to say they'll necessarily extend the life, but you do see that. You'll find, stories, anecdotes about that online. And
Okay.
to Kurt's point about money, I think it's interesting because Matt threw out $50 to $70 a month, and I was doing just a little bit of research on home equity lines before we got on the webinar tonight. And I mean, prices now are incredibly cheap, even some below 3%, but just say in a typical 3 to 4% range, you can borrow $10,000 for 10 years. It's $100 a month, ballpark. That's
Okay.
that's between a 3.5 and 3.75%,
Okay.
interest rate.
Couple more
And if you
questions.
go up to 15 years, you can drop it right down to what Matt's bill is. So in that case, it's a wash, and he doesn't pay any more. He gets solar power now, all clean kilowatt hours, and he's got a solar array. He's gonna pay the bank instead of the utility for the next 15 years, but after that, it's his power. So he had little upfront cost, I guess is the way to.
So Jackie, it sounds like we've got some more questions. We'll try to get those in.
So Cab Enthusiast wants to know, wants you to explain a little bit more about how the roof mounts are attached. Are they drilled through the shingles and the roof? And how do they take ice and snow?
Yeah, they're drilled through the shingle into basically the Iron Ridge one actually slides up underneath the upper shingle. We drill a hole first, put caulk in it, and line it up with the rafters. Okay, then it's
And
slid up, dropped in.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but is there flashing available if a person is worried about their roof?
Yeah, there's flashing available. I carry pictures with me when I come out to actually show you. I can show you online of the type of shingle or the racking that we use for your particular setup.
Okay. Gregory Sheehy wants to know, based on your statement of the durability of solar panels with hail, do insurance companies reduce their rates? We are considered to be in a high-risk area for hailstorms.
I personally, I have not heard of that. I mean, we had a hail damage on our roof. It affected the, it really affected the asphalt shingles around the solar array, but the solar array was, undamaged. So we ended up just, it was about time to replace the roof anyway. So we replaced the roof and then put the solar panels back up. But no, they, the solar panels are pretty, solid state. They're pretty durable. And this was 10 years later. I mean, we had those solar panels on for 12 years already, and they're producing just as much energy almost as they were the first day. Although there is a normal degradation rate of about 0.5% per year, which sounds like it would add up, but even after 50 years, that's only 25% less than the first day. So it lasts for quite a long time.
Okay, 2 more questions, unless somebody types another one in while I'm talking. But so Tom Burton would like to know if he needs a new shingled roof in a year or two, should he move up the roof repair before installing the solar panels?
I think we covered that, but Dave, you got anything else to add to that?
Yes, if you're that close, I would just move it up
Yeah.
to be safe and be done.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
Susan Miller would like to know, do people who get solar become more aware of their electricity consumption and then begin to reduce their consumption due to that increased awareness?
That was the case for me. I mean, so my anecdote is we had a small system. We had a small amount of energy that we used. We had an 1,100 square foot home. I think we were averaging about 3,600 or 4,000 kilowatt hours a year. Not a heck of a lot, but we put up a solar array. We basically became a net zero home. But knowing how much energy you're using per day and comparing that with the amount of energy that you're generating, you can compare hour by hour. You can compare day by day, month by month, year by year. It does heighten your awareness and makes you appreciate what you are leaving on, what appliances you're leaving on, and what appliances you're taking care of to make your system and your investment more effective. Any other? Tony or Dave, any other answers or anecdotes?
I was smiling because I was thinking about, my parents tell me to turn the lights off, and, I guess I don't know if it's good, especially in these days of, safer at home. We're all around each other all the time, but reminding each other. I also compost and bug the heck out of my wife and kids to throw things under the sink that they might otherwise throw down the garbage disposal. But I think that it definitely does. And I would say my wife is one of the interesting converts, because she started out with, I'm not sure I want solar panels on the roof, to, yeah, let's get them up there. And how much money did we get? And what did we send them last month? And so I think so. I haven't got her into an electric car yet, but I know with prices coming down, there's going to be more and more of that. And I didn't even have to. Dave, I don't know if you guys actually do home charging stations, but I just plug mine into a 110. It's like a trickle charger, but I think 220s are easy. And I know you guys do some of that kind of work, right?
Correct. Yeah, we do the Siemens, which is a generic one for the Nissans and all that. And we also put in the Teslas.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, so now that's from Eagle Point's perspective. I think All Sky, we'll try to have Lisa from All Sky on our next webinar, which is next Tuesday. For those of you who came late and you want to catch the beginning, or vice versa, of course, you won't be able to hear this if it was vice versa. But yeah, email us for registration. We'll get a little bit more input next time from All Sky. And if Lisa's not available, maybe we'll even have Dave back if he's willing to join us.
Does Dave get a special parting gift since he was our guest star today? Or
I ran out of gifts, but if
a mug with some water in it.
Any other questions, Jackie?
No, I think we've answered every question.
Okay. So those of you listening from home, thank you for your attendance. Now you see on the screen images. We've got Jackie and Peter in the lower half of the screen. You probably recognize Tony and my mug from being on the camera. But Jackie and Peter are going to help us collect information from those of you who voice interest in this group buy, and then we'll pass it along to Dave's team. That'll be Lynn and Casey over at Eagle Point, and then they'll decide which ones they're going to be able to handle themselves and which ones All Sky Energy is going to jump on and be your solar contractor through this competitive bid process that we did to select those guys. But then we'll always be here if you have any other questions. But I think Eagle Point and All Sky you'll be in really good hands. And please, for the sake of the community and for the sake of our climate and our planet, pass the word, get the word out about this group buy. Direct people to our website, or they can sign up and listen to the next webinar. We will also, in June, we will try to be physically in your community, whether we're at a whether we're at a farmer's market or whether we're at a garden center, we'll be outside. We'll have a table. We'll have information that we can provide to you. We really want to get the word out, but if you could help us with that, that we'd be forever grateful. And thanks a lot. Any other closing comments, guys, or should we?
Kurt,
I would oh, go ahead, Jackie.
Lisa Kalo said that that they also install charging stations. Lisa's with AllSky.
Thank you, Lisa. You're on with us as well. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that input from AllSky, and thank you, Dave from Eagle Point. Thanks to Tony for sharing about your personal home and experience with solar. Thanks to Peter for being in charge of the technical aspects of this webinar. We will get a new webinar subscription for next week, and then we'll let you know when this will be available again. We will actually have this recording stored for you so that you can review it again. Otherwise, just get on the horn, give us a phone call, or send us an email. We'll get back to you within 1 business day. Once we get the information from you and process that, we'll send it over to Eagle Point, and then Eagle Point and AllSky will try to get back to you within 3 to 5 business days. They have a lot of work to do on their end to process the information that we're sending them. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your interest. And I hope all of you stay safe during this period. And that's it. So
good night, everybody.
Regards. Yep. That's it. So thank you, everybody. And we will close it out.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thanks.